Hey everyone, welcome back to the Tracer Podcast, where we dig into the best performing franchises in the country and help you figure out which one, if any, is right for you. Today's episode's a good one. I'm talking with Brian Knuth, who's both a franchisee and he helps run development for Footprints Floors. The dual perspective makes this one very useful, and he gives an honest breakdown of everything about the franchise. We'll get into the business model, what kind of person is successful, how lead gen and crews work. We even break down the item 19 financials from the franchise disclosure document. We do it live. If you're new here, I'm Josh. I work one-on-one with serious franchise buyers, mostly veterans, professionals, and high performers, to help them figure out what franchise actually fits their goals, their skills, and their budget. I'm not just throwing a list of options at you. I guide you through a deep dive franchise research process, help you avoid the hype, and give you the tools to make a confident decision. If that sounds like something you want to do, you can go to tracerfranchising.com, scroll down and book a call. You go to the resource tab to check out the course, the ebook, any of the other articles that I write, or just shoot me an email, josh@tracerfranchising.com. No pressure, just real advice and help. All right, let's get into it. Brian, it's great to have you on. Let's start with just an intro of who you are, your experience in franchising. You're kind of unique in terms of you also are a franchisee. So just give us a little bit of background about you, and then we'll get talking about Footprints Floors.
Sure, and thanks for having me, Josh. As it relates to kind of my background, I had a small business in the past. I got a fortunate opportunity to launch a franchise development firm back in 2012, I guess, official 2014. And that firm represented multiple franchise organizations with all things recruitment. So finding new franchise owners for various companies like Footprints Floors or breweries or art studios, you name it. Um, Along the journey, we partnered with Footprints Floors back in 2018 to take them national. And I put my hand up and wanted to be a part of it because of my past. I have kind of an attraction, if you will, to service businesses, and I found a lot of value inside the business, which hopefully we'll cover today here. But ultimately, I became a franchise owner with Footprints back in 2020. I wear a couple hats, I guess. I run that business or support my team in running that business, as well as I continue to develop Footprints Floors. Personal side, I'm a father of a couple boys and married and so forth. We're a pretty active family, so that ties into kind of my attraction of Footprints as well. But that's a little bit of my background, and I'm sure we'll get into more of that as we continue on.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. So then let's now just jump into the franchise. So can you give us a quick overview, the 30-minute pitch of what Footprints Floors does and what makes it special?
Yeah, so we are a residentially focused flooring company. I say residential because our primary customer is my wife and I, or you, and it's folks that own and occupy their property. They want to transform their project. They have a vision. They have personal attachment to their property. Um, they have an idea from Chip and Joanna Gaines or HGTV, and what they don't know is who do they trust to come in and tear their property apart and put it back together and do it right. And so the general concept is we go out, we meet with homeowners who want to transform their property specific to floors, and we earn their business by being a trustworthy individual. And we ultimately are selling the labor and the oversight attached to flooring projects. So think general management or general contractor, if you will, specific to flooring. So we act kind of like a GC would, that would build a house from ground up, and they would subcontract the various trades from concrete to electric to roofing to siding, you name it. We do the same thing. We earn the customer's confidence, and we contract the labor fulfillment as it relates to wood, laminate, tile, and we do this via subcontractors. So our general business model is a residentially focused flooring company. Um, our primary consumption is the labor management. People consume us as kind of managers, if you will, to oversee the crews rather, and we carry out residential projects all day long with subcontractors. We can really do anything as it relates to the flooring projects, from procurement of materials, to bathrooms and so forth. But the simplified business model is we go out, we earn homeowners' confidence that we're the trustworthy individual to manage and oversee their project, and we mobilize crews to come out and do the fulfillment. So, pretty simple business. We report to customers' properties. We don't have an office. We don't have inventory. I come in with an iPad, a laser measuring device, and confidence, and I speak with you and earn your confidence as a customer, and then I bring a crew in who carries the liability, the equipment, the training, and years of expertise in their related craft, and I let them do what they need to do. I surround them with proactive management and decisions with customers. I don't tell them how to do floors. I make sure that the customer's aware of things that need to happen as construction takes place, and we get approval on that, and we empower the crews to simply carry out the projects as it relates to unique changes and so forth. So that's kind of the business in a nutshell. We're a residential flooring business, and we specifically sell labor.
Got it. So, just a quick summary, right? Basically, you're experts at being able to speak to homeowners and make them understand that, hey, I'm the person that you should trust, right? Flooring, you need floors, right? If you can't do it quickly or you can't do it right, disrupts their life, right? So you earn that trust. And then you manage the people who are experts actually putting the flooring in, right? So you don't have to be an expert at flooring to do this.
Yeah, that's a great point. And something I tell people often is, we'll role play is like, Josh, your product is not that you're God's gift to floors. Your product is you, Josh, that you're going to be committed to the project. You're going to answer your phone, and you're going to help along the way, proactively make decisions. And some of construction is reactive. I don't know what I'm getting into until I demo your house. And so in that regard, it's like, I'm going to be here when the house is getting demoed. I'm going to point out what needs to change. We're going to talk about it. You're going to understand why there's a potential change order. And we're going to satisfy your floors to industry and manufacturer standards. But I'm not going to be the one swinging the hammer. It's my guys. So yeah, you
Gotcha.
summed it up really well.
Cool. Sweet, man. And so that leads to another point, right? Where, well, actually, before we get that, I'm jumping ahead here. Why would someone, and you own, three territories of this franchise, right? So you know the ins and outs of this. Why do people choose you or your sales guys at this point now who are going out? What makes them pick Footprints Floors versus some competitor?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that. I guess I'll start with the competitive landscape. When you boil down the industry of flooring and the industry of trades for that matter, you typically have two players. You have retail centers that want to sell product. So think Floor and Decor, um, Tile World, Carpet One, you name it. Those folks have forklifts, they have supply chain, they have inventory, and they have sales staff inside of their four walls. The objective is to sell tile, to sell wood, to sell laminate. What they struggle with is managing outside their four walls, albeit they're professional businesses. The other side of the construction world is the trades, the installers that have the hardwood skill sets, or the electricians for that matter, whomever it is that's going to go perform the actual trade. Um, the professional side of construction, the retailers, they're pretty trusted by consumers. They're open, they're visible, they're easy to get a hold of, they're transparent with pricing. The tradesmen, they're notorious for being hard to get a hold of. They're notorious for being, not necessarily professional. You can't get them to show up. And so when you take a look at Footprints, and your question is like, why do people hire us? Um, you know, First and foremost, we show up. And what I mean by we show up is we answer the phone. And so our franchise owners, they don't necessarily have to do that role. We provide that for them. It's easy to think that we provide a call center. What we call it is a customer service representative. And there's a lot of emphasis I put on that because, the franchise owners receive a dedicated receptionist Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, their time zone. This allows us to manage and track KPIs and performance, but it also creates cohesion and kind of the company showing up for the franchise owner. So as the homeowner is sitting on their couch and they're thinking about calling somebody, and they pick up the phone or they submit an inquiry on a lead generation platform like Angie's List or Google, our receptionist calls on behalf of our franchise owner. Hey, Josh, this is Connor with Footprints Floors of, insert Denver, Colorado, or whatever, right? I'd like to get that estimate scheduled. Let me go ahead and coordinate my owner's schedule. My owner, Brian's going to be coming out, giving you the estimate on Tuesday at 2, and so on and so forth. Um, Not overly complicated, just something that our competitors, if you will, if we're going to look at them in this light, they don't answer the phone this way. Why? They're busy sanding floors. They're busy doing tile. They typically answer the phone and say, "Oh, shoot, I'm on a job. Why don't you leave me a message? And when the dust settles this afternoon, I'll give you a holler back." Um, they kick the can down. The customer calls them again the next day. And, so the picture I want to paint here is our competition is 3 to 4 days behind us regarding coming out, presenting to the customer what it's going to take to carry out the project. So as we come out as franchise owners, we show up on time, like we said we would. We smell nice. We're dedicated to that project because we don't have to swing hammers. I don't need to rush out the door. I don't need to pull my phone out of my pocket and answer the next lead call. So I can give you and your wife undivided attention around your project. Psychologically, I've showed up on time because my customer service rep answered the phone. I've showed up on time because I physically knocked on your door at noon the way we agreed to, and I provide you undivided attention inside your property, and we talk about your project. What I said just a few moments ago was people know what they want. They want white tile or they want dark hardwoods. They don't know who they trust. So as I stand in your property and I'm uninterrupted, you start to trust me. And as I spend an hour with you talking about the scope of work and talking about the impacts and so forth, I tend to win a lot of jobs. And going back to it, it's not because I wow you with my flooring knowledge. It's because I said I did what I said I was going to do. And that's pretty missing inside of the world of trades, to be candid. So, the competitive landscape is as I described. There's retailers that want to sell product. They're good. They're professional. They're pretty easy to find. And there's labor that comes with challenges. And so, as we carry on through this conversation, I'm sure we'll get into labor and, how do you have a secret sauce, Brian, to manage the labor? We'll get into that, but it's not a challenge at all. And so we win jobs with customers because we're trustworthy and we show up.
Got it. So it's just being the type of business, right, that you yourself would want to interact with, right? And that so often is difficult to find.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And
People buy
so now,
people, right? So it's just being you and people hire you.
yeah, yeah. Okay. And the next kind of exercise I like to do that really, I think, makes it clear what the franchise does is start from I'm a person who wants to replace my hardwood, right? And put something in to finish job, right? Like, what is that customer journey? And then who's responsible? Because what's really cool about this is like you have contractors on the back end, but then you also have the franchisor on the front end, kind of filling the gaps between
Mhm.
I want my floors to, Brian showing up at your door, right? So could you take us through that journey and who's responsible for those pieces of the journey?
Yeah. So there's a few different customer profiles that we interact with. And what I mean by that is everywhere from folks that know exactly what they want to do to folks that are just starting and they're looking for ideas. So I'll give you the majority of who we interact with is a homeowner that has a vision. Their brother, their sister, their mother, their neighbor has recently transformed their property and they're looking to transform theirs. And so usually what happens for us in this journey is um, we intercept the lead through some sort of marketing or lead generation channel or directly to our presence because we optimize, SEO and our Google and website and so forth. And so as a homeowner, let's use you as the example. You're ready to finally start getting some quotes inside the project. You reach out to a few different service providers, one of which is us. As you reach out, whether it's through submitting a name, a phone number, or physically picking up the phone and calling, your my receptionist, I'll play the franchisee, you're going to be the homeowner. My receptionist is going to reach out to you and say, "Hey, Josh, this is Connor," and Connor is the name of my receptionist. This is Connor with Footprints Floors of Carmel. Wanted to get a hold of you and wanted to schedule that in-home estimate. It looks like you'd like to transform your floors. Sometimes we have a lot of data, sometimes we don't. Generally speaking, you say, "Yeah, that'll be great." Yeah, Tuesday at noon. At that point, my receptionist has physically pulled up my schedule, confirmed that I'm available Tuesday at noon. Now, as a franchise owner, should I have a dentist appointment or whatever, I can totally change my schedule, adjust my schedule so that I'm not going to be blocked out if I want to be with the kids or whatever it may be. And so customer journey, which is your question, customers now coordinated an estimate with Footprints Floors on Tuesday at 2. The ownership then gets transferred to me as the franchise owner. So I have a
Can we
task. I have
can we pause there? Let's pause
yeah,
there,
you bet.
right? So
Mhm.
who is responsible for running the marketing and the SEO and all the things that
Oh,
the
good
ways I
question.
would have found it? Is it me, the
Yeah,
franchisee? Like you gave me templates, or is it like who's doing that?
yeah, good question. I'm moving a little bit too quick, so thanks for bringing it down. So I always say that it's a function of, again, I'll use me as a franchisee. It's my budgets. It's my decision, yes or no. It's corporate's influence. Now, corporate's influence comes from a collection of data and lead performance amongst 100 franchisees around the system from east to west coast. So as I come in as a brand new franchise owner and I'm going through training, corporate provided me and every other franchise owner with an overview of historic lead data, saying, hey, Brian, in these zip codes, here's the different services that seem to have the highest hit rate. Here's the different leads and sources and so forth. We encourage that you put X amount of budget with this lead source, this lead source, and this lead source. So corporate's provided me with all the data, in fact, some of the influence. If I'm a person that's like, that's above me, I trust you, I'm here because I trust you, I'm good at X, Y, and Z, I'm simply looked at to one, approve of the budget and say, okay, and two, approve of kind of approve of the allocation, which sources it goes to, and approve of the total volume. So then corporate connects all of these lead channels to our system, all our back office, as well as all the payment is connected to my credit card. So it's my money. And then I kind of don't have to think about it. And this is generally the journey that franchise owners, even lead generation and marketing, like people that come to us with those skill sets, they quickly find themselves not really paying attention to that in the front end because they're learning how to be effective flooring owners. They're running a business. And while we can get into that and we can dissect all the analytics and start to tweak that, I don't really have to, as long as it's performing at a certain result, which I think we're going to talk about here shortly, is what we'll get into kind of what is our customer acquisition cost. So in short, as long as our customer acquisition cost is falling inside of this controlled number that we know is, you know, fair and profitable for us as business owners, most of us kind of start to tune that out. As
Yeah,
we
and
then,
that's like I just want to hit how important that is, right? The
okay,
franchise owners can tune that out, right? It's like
yeah,
that's way different than like franchises that say, "Oh yeah, we give you everything you need for marketing," but all they're doing is handing you templates
a
and
playbook
saying
or
like,
yeah,
"Go set up your Facebook ads account, go set up your Google ads account," because you're never going to be
right.
able to do that. It's very hard. So like, I just wanted to like double click on the fact that you're just saying, "Yep, spend this much money." And I approve of whatever you recommend, and then you're just checking on it and not really paying attention after that point. Because yeah, that's like huge. That's so huge if you don't have to worry about leads coming in. They're falling within the range that the franchise knows is good, and you can just tune it out. Like that is huge. So okay, sorry, I had to jump in there and
No,
let people know that's not super normal, right? Like that's really cool that this is set up that way.
I really appreciate that. And I guess case in point, right? I've been a franchise owner since February of 2020. And talking to you as a franchise owner, I even gloss. So I go, the phone rings. I go out to your door. And then that's because I genuinely don't I look at my marketing from an analytics and like a performance result. And then it works and it works extremely well. And my receptionist, Connor, I keep talking about him. He does a fantastic job of converting my dollars and lead allocations into in-home estimates. So I don't necessarily, although it's all at my fingertips to look at, and I could click and see the performance of everything down to the penny. Um, you kind of start to turn away from looking at it every day because it's working. And then furthermore, to add on to what you're saying, it's not a Brian, trust us, it works. Here's where you should allocate your dollars, and just do it. We as franchise owners, and because I think all of this is performed by corporate, it's a commitment that corporate has made to us to manage and convert our lead generation dollars into in-home estimates. We compile and track all of that. We also compile and track where every dollar came from as it relates to customers. So as we've done that as a system, we don't hide any of that information. we've created a dashboard that every franchise owner's information is populated to what we call Footprints Fusion. It's a fusion of everybody's dollars, everybody's results. So if I'm thinking to myself as an owner, man, I'd really like to try to dip into some more tile leads, right? As an example, I don't have to pick up the phone and start calling franchise partners, although I can. And that's one of the values of being a franchise owner is I can call peers and say, what are you doing? Instead, I can click Open Fusion, and in 5 minutes, I can see who's generating the top results in tile. I can see the sources they're using. And if I choose to call franchise owners, I laser right in on those that are doing that particular service that I'm trying to maybe, you know, tiptoe into or maybe just increase because I need some more work in that category. So I guess my point there is to not only echo what you're saying about all the oversight that Footprints offers us and all the manpower and horsepower they put to our accounts as far as lead generation, they've also kind of taken that to the next level, compiling everybody's results and helping the greater system just cut right to the chase. What's working? Where do we put more dollars to make the phone ring more when you're trying to get more tile work or more woodwork or whatever it may be? So yeah, I take that for granted, and
Yeah.
maybe
You're
that's a
making
positive
CEO
because
Yeah, you're making CEO level decisions, right? You're not making, content creation level. You're not making
good
VP of
point.
marketing. You're not making CMO decisions. You're making CEO level decisions without any of that staff, right? That's part of the franchise and whatever fees you're paying.
Yeah, and you're right. And then depending on how far you want to analyze it, you could arguably make those decisions inside of 5-10 minutes and get back to the family.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. So
great
that's
point.
huge.
And I apologize because I do I clearly take some of these things for granted that you know uh, how do you get into a front door? It just works. You wake up and you've got scheduled appointments.
Yeah, yeah. That's the dream. Okay, sorry to interrupt you. So now we
No,
know
so
that it's scheduled. Now it's on the franchise owner. What's next?
yeah, so now on my schedule right now as we're talking, let's just say, and I don't actively operate my business, but as we're talking, Connor tees up an estimate for Tuesday at 2 or whatever. Um, I can see my workload. I can see what's going on. I can reach out if that doesn't work well, or if I'm in a different neighborhood, I can totally manage and manipulate my schedule with our homeowners. I reach out to you via automations because we have a really robust CRM, meaning as Connor schedules you on my schedule, you're going to get an email from me that says, hey, Josh, this is Brian, the owner of Footprints Floors, or the salesperson, or whatever the body of the email we want to craft is. And I look forward to our estimate on Tuesday at 2. Now, as Tuesday comes around, you get a text, much like the preparation of this call, right? It's just communication. It's, hey, I'll be there at 2. And that's all automation stuff done through our software. So I'm not that great. I wish I could say I follow up that much, but my systems do it for me. And those are systems provided by Footprints. But again, that's the homeowner feeling like, wow, Brian's really committed to this project. So now as we come into the customer's property, this is like 85% of our customers. I knock on the door, you welcome me in, and within a few seconds of pleasantries, you say, Brian, come on back to the kitchen or whatever. We'd like to show you what we'd like to do. And I emphasize that comment. We'd like to talk about or show you what we want to do. I emphasize that because customers usually know what they want to do. They want to do white backsplash. They want to do dark hardwoods, right? I keep it general. I'll say the same thing quite often, but within a few minutes, they start talking about the hardwoods. And our role as franchise owners is to essentially measure out the property and assign that measurement to a scope of work, which calculates a price. The price being, if I win your project, I'm going to have a crew that I need to pay. I need to make sure that I have enough inside of my profitability to not only pay the crew what they expect to make, because you got to pay the crew or they don't show up, and then make enough for me, right? And there's a number that we talk through with our franchise owners, and there's a target that we want to make in the equation. Not because we're greedy, but because we want to be profitable and we want to be healthy and we want to put kids through college and someday retire, right? We're trying to get ahead here with this business. And so as I formulate all that, it's a simple math formula. So what that allows me to do, because it's a simple math formula and we have a full estimations program, it allows for me to conduct a genuine conversation with you and your wife, to talk about a picture on the wall, to talk about a high school or a college degree or something. and to connect, to talk about previous experiences, whether it's a bathroom remodel or deck, or hey, it looks like your landscaping's being torn out. And ultimately, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find an opening to set expectations related to the project. While I want to sell you and your wife, and I'd like to earn your business related to your backsplash, what I'm more importantly doing is creating an expectation that we're going to be noisy. We're going to be messy. It looks like you got a cool podcast studio out front there. While we're here, you can't schedule any podcasts because you're going to be really upset with my guys with how noisy they're going to be, right? And I'm not telling you anything that most homeowners don't go, yeah, that totally makes sense. But if I fail to tell you it before we engage, and you find out the first day of the project, you're disrupted, you're off put, you're upset on Wednesday when you come home and your kitchen's in plastic and you can't cook dinner. All things that are quite simple, but ultimately what I'm doing more so than setting expectations with you and your wife, I'm creating a landscape for my crew to succeed. Because if I effectively navigate the conversation and you say, man, Brian, this sounds great, let's rock and roll, which happens quite often. Not because I'm any good, but because my competition still hasn't yet showed up. And you're like, all right, let's just make a decision. We like Brian, he's here, he can start on Tuesday. As I then bring my crew, so I exit your property. I'll slow down a moment. I exit your property with potentially a signed agreement and a deposit check. If that doesn't happen, we do require our customers to pay a deposit check before they get on our schedule. So let's just assume Josh says yes, sign our scope of work or our contract of work, and pay a security deposit, about half the project. So now I coordinate crew start. I reach out to you. At first, I let you know, hey, let me take a look at my crew scheduling. We do have some availability next week. We're looking at either Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm not confident. So as the week progresses, I'll let you know. So as I get home tonight, being Wednesday that we're talking right now, I might give you a buzz tomorrow, Thursday. Hey, Josh, looks like we are set to start your project on Tuesday. And I do this after, taking a look at my production with my crew and knowing that my crew is going to finish their project on Friday this week. And so I know with certainty we'll be there Tuesday. Then I coordinate the schedule with you and my crew. I provide my crew a work order so that they're informed of the project size. Being we work with subcontractors, we don't necessarily say, hey, J&J Floors, I need you to do this. You have to start on this time. The expectation is this, that. They don't like to be treated that way, nor can we really tell them those things legally. So it's more a proposal of, hey, Josh, or hey, J&J Flooring, here's a work order. Let me know if you'd like to take it on. I'd like to commit to the customer on Tuesday. And they usually respond real quickly and go, yep, looks great. I'll take it on. We can be there Tuesday. And I know they can be there Tuesday because I've kept them fed with work the last 5.5 years that I've been running my business, right? I have the same crews I started with 5.5 years ago. Wow. So I know that they're going to finish on a certain day, and I know that they're going to be free the next business day for the most part. And so as we start your project on Tuesday, my day may look typically in the mornings. I've grown beyond this, but for a brand new franchise owner who's wearing kind of all the hats, in the morning, we're going to show up to our job starts. Of course, not every day is going to be a job start, but we're going to show up sometime in the morning. We're going to chat with the homeowner. I always tell people it's primarily to kind of put them at ease, tell them what the game plan is, and get them off to work. And we're going to look at our crew and say, hey, guys, anything you need out of us, anything you foresee that we don't have, to which the answer is usually no, because they tell you in the afternoons, hey, we got to this stopping point. Homeowner might need one more bag of this or that. And so we get that addressed in the evenings. And so as I start your project on Tuesday morning and I get you and your wife out the door and my crew starts swinging hammers, I discuss with my crew rough points of the project. How long's demo going to take? And we start to learn those things. It's I don't want to call it Groundhog's Day, but a lot of what we do is very forecastable. You know about how long this demo is going to take, so you know when to check in again. And we just kind of disappear and we allow the crews to do what they need to do. We check in with them virtually. But now my afternoon is going off and doing estimates. So let's not get into that because you asked me what the customer journey looks like. And I totally jumped over some important points here real quickly.
I was just about to say, where's the material coming from?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So as I speak with you and your wife and I provide this understanding of the scope of work. A lot of the dialogue is going to be, hey, you've already got, and a lot of times it's not me saying it, it's the homeowner saying, we'd like to do this black tile or whatever. And they've got a sample. And so as we talk with them, we say, look, our role here is to make sure it's installed according to industry and manufacturer specs. And I'm going to give you a shopping list of what you'll need to carry out this project. And so we empower you and your wife with a shopping list of what you'll need. We put it in the form that is kind of a pick order for these retail centers. And we empower you to go to these retail centers because chances are you're going to say, Brian, I got this black tile from Floor & Decor. And I'm going to say, Josh, this is wonderful. And that's a great option. I'll give you a grocery list of what you'll need and you go procure the product there. They have delivery options. I too have delivery options. So just let me know and I'll put a line item on your work order. If you need my crew to pick it up, we can do that. And we'll take care of the project. So 85% of our homeowners, we empower them where they're at in their journey. We empower them to continue on, which is they know what they want. They know where they plan to get it. They know what it costs. Now I empower you with a grocery list and you procure it through that center. The other varieties of things, we can provide all that stuff. We can do all that. But most of the time, I put that heavy weight of logistics and delivery and all that on the homeowner. And the homeowner feels empowered because they get to get the best price possible. I don't need to stick my nose in it. I don't need to mark it up, none of that stuff. But I guess if you're hearing, and I'll just hit it right on the head, we can do anything as it relates to these projects. We just change our pricing according. So if you say, Brian, I don't even want to mess with it or whatever, great. I can help you with that. We can get involved. What we try to coach our franchise owners to do is identify roughly where the customer's at in their selection journey. And is your time as a franchise owner worth it to help with the product selection? So a few examples would be, if a customer knows that they want this black tile or whatever, meet them there. By that I say, great, this black tile is wonderful. I'll tell you how much you need. Go get it wherever your heart desires. We'll be honored to put it in. If I hear from the customer, hey, Brian, I have no idea where to start, but this is a rental house. I don't really care. Wonderful. I got a few samples in the truck. Let me go get them. It's super limited. I've got 10 samples. These are kind of the 10 most popular right now related to your project. That customer is like a landlord or somebody that just truly doesn't care. They just want their floor improved because they're going to sell the house or whatever. I provide the product. I already know the pricing. It's speed to transaction. And then the third one, and obviously there's more than 3 customers. The third one is someone that's like, oh, Brian, I don't even know where to start. We think we want to do this, but we're not sure about that. And we're not sure how this color goes with our gold fixtures. And wonderful. I want you to go speak with Stacy down at Total Tile. I want you to talk to Travis at ProSource. And I want you to peek into Floor & Decor. Those are 3 options. They all have awesome design equipment. They have thousands of products. They can talk to you. They can show you your property. They can, and what I'll hand you is a grocery list of how much you'll need. So as you look at these beautiful products, you can understand how much of their product you'll need and what my installation cost is going to be. So essentially what I'm doing with that customer is I'm identifying that they're going to spend 5, 6, 7 hours picking colors. I don't want to hold their hand during that. I want to empower them with the quantity and let them go pick it with Stacy. And the secondary part of that is I'm providing Stacy or whomever a lead. In return, there's oftentimes customers on a Saturday during soccer practice or whatever that's inside of a retail store because they're like, hey, I'm going to go look at tile. And that retail center says, have you identified a contractor? Call my friend Brian at Footprints Floors. So there's a synergy amongst businesses in the world we live in that I toss them leads, they toss us leads. We kind of handle the time-consuming portion that one another doesn't really do, and we benefit one another. We add to one another's values.
Yeah, so like let's go even a step higher, right? The so what of all this, right? This has basically no overhead. You operate out of your house with no materials and none of that other stuff. You operate solely within your zone of genius, right? You're not a Footprints Floors is not a designer based company. It is not a installation based company. There are no licenses, like the if you're this some states, whatever, right? Like you're solely a management and a little bit of sales, really just kind of being friendly, right? So it makes the business super easy, super low overhead, and really easy to get going, right? and you get to focus on one thing. I think the best businesses do one thing really, really well, um, and that's essentially what you're doing, right? Especially if you're brand new to business, right? Like that's you don't want something where you're doing 10 different things.
Mhm.
So I think the so what of that is a very compelling from just like a standpoint of I'm a potential franchise buyer, and I don't know what to get, and I've never been in business before. Um, yeah, I think that's what kind of attracts me to invite you here is like that whole model.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. And I would just say something I just said a few moments ago, which, it's intimidating to start a new business and be an engineer, a school teacher, military retiree and say, how am I going to be a flooring pro? Erase that. What is your area of genius? It's you. Your product is you. People buy you. And I say that to folks, and as they come out and get trained and they become extremely knowledgeable about flooring, they find that they go out and they start talking with homeowners about floors and all this different, you know, specs and standards. And you don't need to do that. And when you learn how to just be Josh in the living room, and it's like, yeah, I'm a really confident, highly skilled flooring guy, but I don't need to talk. I need to talk about I'm committed. I'm going to answer my phone, not just today and tomorrow, but a year from now. It lowers that barrier of entry because it's like your area of genius is you. I'm Josh. I'm a good guy. I can control what I can control, and that is I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. That's kind of easy to get involved with. It's intimidating, don't get me wrong, and there'll be emotion. That's the hardest aspect of our business is emotions. But within short order, you'll start to see patterns. You'll start to successfully carry out projects and realize, to your point, man, I know I got a lead cost. I paid to get in the living room, and I paid to drive here. I don't have any other costs until I get a yes from you. At which point, I also get a security deposit, which covers my crew costs, and so now from a cash flow management standpoint, my business is generally cash flow positive at all times. I don't,
Yeah.
I don't waste money doing things like carrying inventory or, you know, gambling on the next trend or fad. I mean, bamboo was extremely popular and lumber liquidators lost millions of dollars because they speculated on a product that they couldn't end up selling. And they effectively had some liquidation side of their company, which it's in their name. But that's product speculation and trend speculation and consumption speculation. We don't do that.
Yep. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Sweet. So I think, pretty good idea. And then just to nail it home, right? I think now that people have a pretty good idea of what they're doing day to day, especially at the beginning, right? Obviously any business as you scale, you're adding to the ops side, to the sales side, to whatever.
That's right.
Who is your ideal candidate? Like what are the traits?
You know, I think it's easy to dissect what we've talked about and say sales, right? And that's true. But some of the traits are like steady, um, emotionally stable individuals, organized, effectively sales, because as you go into customers' properties, you do need to value your time and look at it as, let's say an hour engagement where my objective is to get to a yes or no. So folks that understand how to navigate with an agenda in mind, um, maybes kill us in the world of sales. So it's like, I got to get to a yes or no. That's super important. But you don't need to be God's gift to sales. What you need to be is organized. You need to be accountable. You need to be structured, right? People that can schedule everything they do, including their personal life and not outside of business hours, but if you got a dentist appointment, put it on your schedule. That way your receptionist doesn't block it out with a customer appointment. And then you're scrambling to call people and clean up the mess, if you will. But that's kind of the skill sets, right? So organized, scheduled, accountable, decisive. Every construction project as we start, none of us have x-ray vision. So as we give the estimate, we don't know what we're getting into till we remove it. So as we start, we're going to surface things that need to be corrected. Maybe the dishwasher broke 7 years ago and we got to replace some flooring underneath it to make it structurally sound. Being able to say, yeah, hey, it's $85 extra or $225. And I know none of us prepared for this, but this is what we need to do it right. Being confident in that regard. And then I say emotionally stable because at the core of all of this, construction is disruptive. Homeowners are wonderful as we provide them an estimate. They're excited. The emotional journey is excitement. As we tear apart their property, life happens. They get a flat tire on the way home. They have a boss that yells at them, whatever, right? And so we sometimes hear tension from our customers and is not pointed at us. So for those that can recognize, oh yeah, the customer's a little bit nervous about their project because we're 3 days into a 7 day project and they're supposed to be nervous. It's not a shot at me like they're losing confidence in me. So people that are emotionally stable tend to do really well at this business. People that are hyper personality type perfectionists, construction's messy. There's nothing perfect about construction. So those people tend to, get a little bit worn out in what we do. So, I know that's kind of vague, um, but really, if you look at I was going to say top 10, but if you look at our franchise system, we have success with a variety of backgrounds and professional skill sets. What they all have in common is they're pretty go with the flow. They're pretty scheduled. They hold themselves accountable first and foremost, and everyone around them feeds off that.
Awesome. And I think the whole, like, emotionally stable kind of that advice is good for any business, right? Like my wife and I own a kids dance franchise, and it's like even we get flack sometimes. They're like, "Why did you, charge whatever?" And they're mad, and it's like you signed up for the recital. Like that's why we charged you, because you signed up for it.
Uh-huh.
And then they love the recital, right? So like every business, even one where people should just be happy all the time, right? Because we're dancing with their kids, they get a little bit of that, and you need that emotional stability to just be the adult in the room and know that they're mad at something that has nothing to do with you, right? They're mad at what happened to them 2 hours ago.
Right. Yeah.
Um, cool. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. So this was really good. I think next, real quick, let's hit on the leadership and the support. So not just, really, really cool, interesting journey, especially for the veterans out there. Right. I work with a lot of vets of who founded the business, but like how many people are there supporting you? What are their roles? So like the full leadership picture. But start with the founding story and then just like the full leadership picture as it is today.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of information out there, but Brian Park started this business out of pure necessity, right? He was not sure what he wanted to do with his degree, retired military, um, went into work for a flooring company because of some dogs that destroyed his house, and found out how much this guy made, and very quickly grew inside of this organization. Well, the organization laid him off, um, and owed him and a lot of the employees money. And so Brian set sail to establish his own flooring company with kind of a mission of we don't spend money unless it returns increased money on top of that. So we don't buy flashy trucks, we don't buy big offices, and I think it's really important because in the world of franchise support, you're looking for an organization that's stable, an organization that's going to be a good steward of your royalty dollars and ensure that that mantra of we don't spend royalty dollars unless it increases returned money on top of it. So I would share that as Brian grew his business, what he started to do was fill in the gaps to make himself more effective and to generate increased capital, right? Increased revenue through customers. And so what Brian started to identify was there's a variety of roles that need to happen in order to actively manage marketing, lead generation, engage with customers, carry out projects, manage crews, get paid, the whole gamut. And so he really started as an army of one, trying to surround himself with infrastructure that made him most effective in the living room at selling and problem solving and carrying out projects. And as he did that, he essentially grew the infrastructure that we see today at a much smaller scale. So Brian did this for several years, and then in fact awarded a few franchises throughout the Denver market where he's from. And it really didn't have a big vision to go national. Um, and so he had experience in creating this infrastructure with kind of the goal in mind of just servicing the greater Denver, Colorado Springs market. And he had a few franchise owners, and things were going incredibly well. And so when we did decide to take it national, it wasn't like, hey, we want to build a franchise and then turn it loose to the nation. Brian really wasn't aspiring to be a franchisor, but in fact had something that was like, why am I relegated to just Colorado? And so as he launched, he had the entire ecosystem or the entire infrastructure built and effectively operating for 6 previous years. So as we launch franchise owners, our organization hasn't really changed, but what we've done is just grown in numbers. So if you look at us from like and this is a general oversight, we have what we call managed services. Managed services is our team of everything from um, lead inquiry, and even before that, right? Lead allocation, budget allocation for marketing and leads, to lead inquiry, to scheduled estimate. So if you think it's the whole contact center, if you will, that focuses on everything with getting in front of a potential customer that wants to transform their project. And that includes, I'm going to sell this stuff short because I sometimes don't think about this because I take it for granted. That includes technologies. That includes automations. That include, you name it, right? Connectivities with vendors out there such as Angie, because every once in a while they send us a lead that's concrete. And while concretes are floors, we don't want to buy that lead. And so everything related to, like, from lead to scheduled estimate, whether it's effective or it falls, short of what we do, there's a whole team managing that. I think that's comprised of about 45 individuals at this point, and there's a VP, and then there's a couple directors, and then from there you've got some managers, and then their respective teams, for forever really have been virtual. So everybody inside of our company works from home, and they call on their respective regions. For example, I keep saying, Connor, my business is in Eastern time zone. Connor works Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 Eastern time zone. We have folks that call on Pacific, 8 to 5 in those time zones. They don't necessarily live in their time zones because some people like to get up early and end their day early and so forth. So it works incredibly well. From the scheduled appointment, if you will, if I'm a franchise owner, from there, I need support. So we have an incredibly robust support and operations team focusing on the tools, the technology that I need inside the living room, whether it be estimation software, whether it be connectivity to vendors, because while I may not want to sell the product, I need to have an idea of how this product needs to be applied. So having vendors on our chats and you name it, there's a whole team of support and field operations. That team is comprised of, I think about a dozen people, two of which were previous franchise owners for like 6 years. So they ran a very effective business here in Boulder, Colorado. They wanted kind of a change, and so they sold their business back to Brian Park, the CEO, and they came on board as staff. And man, when I have a question about something, they're not just telling me what the protocol says; they're telling me what they've done 100 times over, because they've had an upset crew, or they've had a customer that took off on vacation, and or whatever it may be. And so we have a staff there that's there to support with field training. And then on the final side, and it's not necessarily that it works this way, we have a full finance team that helps with things like collections, helps with contractual crew language, and binding agreements with crews and customers. And God forbid a customer doesn't pay, we have legal rights as a contractor to file liens, and so we have legal on that team that can help with navigating the legalities around collecting on a project that you've completed and so forth. That doesn't happen often, but there's an incredibly robust team on the finance and business P&L tracking side of things. And I would summarize that that's kind of the three general systems inside of our business, which is managed services, field operations, and finance, and general business operations and legal.
And how many franchisees are there?
We're right in the high 80s, so like 89. We've got a few that have just come through that are working through. So yeah, just about 90.
So 90, and it sounds like, there's got to be at least 50 guys, doing all those things that you just described, right, on the franchise.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I think there's about just shy of 70 on the greater team, and then in addition to that, this is something people I think overlook in the world of trades. There's no real authority. There's no real flooring college and so forth. But yet you have all these vendors and all these manufacturers and so forth that are like, gosh, our product gets misrepresented. Our product gets installed incorrectly, and we get blamed like we produce a bad product. And so there's a tremendous amount of focus on kind of doing the right thing, following standards and so forth. And so I bring this up because as we've grown, as you just highlighted, like just about 70 employees, 100 franchise owners, let's call it. There's also a collection of like probably 60 individuals that sit kind of as a board of reference and resource for us as a company. They join our chats. These are manufacturers reps with, Loba and Ditra and Schluter Systems and, Mohawk and Shaw and Real Hardwoods and the National Wood Flooring Association, they are on our chats providing answers and industry guidelines for how we effectively install these products so that they don't fail. So, a team of 70 plus the greater system of the flooring world has come around us with support because we're doing it right. We're not cutting corners, and they see that we're dedicated to that.
Yeah, and I mean, normally you're seeing if it's like 1 to 5, right? That's usually pretty good for support to franchisees, and you guys are almost at 1 to 1, right? Plus, you have all these outside vendors, so that's like very, very strong in terms of just like the number of people there to support the franchisees. It's a very strong system, right? Very strong. And
Yeah.
then real quick, well, let's touch on training, just get them going, get them launched, right? If you just run us through that, just real quick.
Yeah, so we've built out a full curriculum with, I just mentioned the NWFA. So that would be kind of a governing body. They set all the standards. It's the National Wood Flooring Association. And then there's another body that's the National Tile Contractors Association. They set all the standards on what needs to happen so you don't have a failed floor, in short. We've collectively built a university. It's Footprints Floors University, where you go through this program virtually. So franchise owner Josh, congratulations. We'd like to award you the franchise. Um, Between today and coming out to train in, let's say, our next training class, you're going to participate in this online training course. You're going to become certified. You're going to have more flooring knowledge than you'll ever know how to use. As you come out to training, it's 2 weeks of hands-on applicable training, which is, I mean, you're going to install a floor. Even though we just talked about it, our business model is we use subcontractors. We want you to understand how to install it. We want you to understand that the whole gamut. You're going to go out, you're going to do sales training, you're going to shadow our team, you're going to do production and decision making, and you'll go through 2 weeks of training in Denver. It's very involved. During those 2 weeks of training, the second week, two things turn on. One, your lead generation, and two, your crew recruitment, right? So subcontracted crews, how do we get them? Where do we find them? We turn that on. We help you. We send you home essentially with a Rolodex of 6, 8, 12 options that we say, hey, here's some good crews. Let's, get some work orders in front of them. As you graduate on Friday, you go home and you start doing estimates as soon as Monday. Now, shortly after you return to home, we have you do some shadowing with a local franchise owner, whether it's in your market or close proximity, just so you can start to build a relationship with them as well. But essentially you're going to be off to the races as soon as you graduate. Now, one of those many support field operations people, they then smother you with kind of a servant type leadership. They're on the phone with you all the time. It'll slowly start to get by your choice. It'll start to get weekly, monthly, quarterly. And it's really, again, it's by your choice because you're like, hey, I got this. I don't need to have a call with my support manager. I'm cool. But you'll lean on them and say, hey, I got a question about this. Am I forgetting anything? Am I overlooking anything? And so forth. But you become more confident, and we help. We train. We do weekly calls as an entire system. So every Thursday we call it an open access call where the entire organization gets on. There's like 4 general subjects that we rotate through. And then we do an annual business review where we dissect your P&L. We show you where, you've left a little money on the table. We highlight some of the major wins of the year, and we put together a program of, what are we going to focus on as we continue to improve your overall business, but also, increase some of the deficiencies that last year were a struggle or whatever it may be.
Yeah,
There's
very
no
cool.
shortage of support. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so tons of training, right? I mean, would you say 50, 60 hours of online training? Um, that 2 weeks in person, that's that's a lot of time. A lot of that's practicing selling. And I probably should have mentioned this earlier, right? Like sales, this isn't this like used car sales, right? Like you said, it's really just people liking you. I always like to highlight my wife was a nurse for 10 years, right? Now she's one of the top salespeople in our franchise because of the empathy that she has, right? She's just used to talking to different types of people, very empathetic, knows how to make people feel better, right? That's like really what you need to sell is like make a connection, make them feel like they trust you, make them like you. You're not, slick talking them up into the next model, right? It's not that kind of sales. So you're doing a lot of, anyway, that's what most people are. I bring that up because most people are nervous about that. And you guys have what, 20 hours of on the job training on sales or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and then you have tons of support once you get going, which is pretty much as soon as you get home, right? So very cool. Okay. So we're coming close. I usually try to do these about an hour and 15 minutes. So I do want to hit the item 19 and then the top um I would say like questions that people have about this model. Okay. So I'm gonna
Sure.
try something. I haven't done this before. Let's see if I can share my screen with this software. And so for those who don't know, as I'm trying to get this to work, the item 19 is a um item in the franchise disclosure document. Franchise disclosure document, it's a 23 item document. Every franchise has to file with the Federal Trade Commission. This document has 23 items that are outlined. Item 1 is the history of the company, right? You can see litigation in item 3. You can see startup costs in item 7. You can see, right, so on and so forth. Item 19 is financial performance representations, and this is it for Footprints Floors, right? So this is the 2025 FTD. They file them every year. It starts off usually with some definitions, which is what you see here: averages, calendar year, right? Basic stuff. So, but we all know what we're talking about. And then essentially each franchise, it's up to them how much they could just have the average revenue, and that's it. They could have P&Ls. They could have nothing, right? This is totally up to the franchise. So if you see one that's very transparent, has a lot of numbers in it, a lot of data, it's usually because they have less to hide than someone who only has one or two things or numbers that don't really make sense. Okay. So what we're looking at here is we're going to start off with company owned outlets. That's table 1. And then Brian, I'll let you kind of take over. Whatever you want to talk about, it's up to you. And I'll scroll through it. Just let me know how you want to do it.
Yeah. I think it's important to understand, that your franchisor knows what they're talking about, not just because they say they do, but they're in the trenches operating the same business. So Brian Park operates his business just like we do as franchise owners. He pays royalty, he pays contact center, et cetera, et cetera. He's bound by the same franchise agreement that we are. He knows how to run a business, right? He's, $4 million is a pretty good business. That's a business that he probably works, 3 to 5 hours a week on. Definitely not in. He's got a whole team running that for him. So, throughout the discovery process, we get into that, and people can, start to quantify what his team looks like to accomplish $4 million in revenue. But if you scroll down a little bit further, I think it's really important as you navigate our business and businesses alike. Can you quantify the revenue? How do you get it? Where does it come from? And what are you left with what are you left with as an owner? And this doesn't necessarily resonate with everybody here, but ultimately, as I take you through or take candidates through the process, they talk about, what does it cost to get in front of a customer? So we look here, we've got somewhere in the middle of all these cost per estimate, right? It cost me $110 to get into a customer. What's that customer worth to me, or that typical homeowner worth to me? Well, my gross sales per estimate is about $1,300. Obviously, I'm not going to get every customer to say yes. So it's not that everybody I go to says yes for $1,329, but as I go out and I do 987 estimates in my business, I clock $1.26 million in gross revenue. And so we can break down through average tickets, and we talk through a few of those things as you get to speaking with owners. But ultimately, what does it cost me to carry out that project? So if I earn $1.26 million in revenue, and my product is the labor, well, what's it cost me to carry it out? My direct cost of goods sold is my labor, $680,000 to carry out that type of work. And so as I look at it as an owner, what do I make? Well, I end up with a gross profit of $586,166. This will all be validated by franchise owners, and then they share with you what their costs are out of that 586. But in short, Josh, I think we talked about it, is this is a home-based business. I need lead generation budgets. I need, a vehicle to get to customers' properties. I need a cell phone. I need a computer. That's really it. So as you can imagine, out of that 586, there's a pretty nice lifestyle for a franchise owner. So we show everything as you scroll down through this. This is table 3, and we've got several tables here of data. And I think I echo your sentiment, which is we know how to generate revenue. We know where it comes from. We know how much you should retain as an owner, and we show it all. We're not afraid of anything. We've got unbelievable performance amongst the system, and furthermore, we know how to help you and manage your business to tweak it if you're not doing well or if you aspire for more.
Awesome. Awesome. And then just other notes real quick on this is, as you guys go through this, you'll be able to see the ability to kind of project out an actual P&L, estimate costs, marketing. You can see time they've been in business. It seems, right, the longer they've been in business, they continue to grow, which is what you want to see. You don't want to see just stagnation. And then everything that's not in here, right, because there's obviously a lot that's not in here. And that's because, as a franchise owner, I don't give corporate my P&L every month. Like that doesn't happen, right? So to get those numbers, you have to talk to franchisees. That's a very important part of this process. Every franchise research process will have that. It's called validation. And these owners were in your shoes, so they'll tell you exactly the numbers that you're looking for, right? That's just something that we can't give you as franchise owners or the broker or anything like that. Okay. So yeah,
That's
appreciate
right.
it, Brian. Pretty good overview of this. Okay, cool. All right, so
And
let's
one thing
finish
about the
up. Oh, go
validation
ahead.
process, I also say, they're going to be able to share their numbers. They're also going to be able to share their experiences. So I oftentimes say, wow, the numbers are great, but the numbers are accomplished by people that enjoy what we do. So, what we do is pretty simple. If you liken yourself to our top performers, chances are you'll probably be one of them. If you liken yourself to our bottom performers, which you'll get a chance to speak with, it's a good chance you might be one of them. And that's probably not a good decision for you. And so as you go through this, I always encourage people to, make sure you get to the point of validation and understand where you fit in our greater system and who you align with.
Yeah, really good point, right? Something that I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to shamelessly plug myself here, right? So if you do work with me, um, there's a lot of education that goes on. I have a matching quiz that is almost 100 questions. We do an interview reviewing those and asking more. And then it's my job to find franchises that I think you'd be a great fit for, right? And if Footprints Floors comes up as one of those, you're going to get 5 or 6 potential matches, and it's your job to narrow those down to the one where you're most confident that your skills align, right? I like to say a franchisor is like a bridge that's 90% built, right? It's getting you from where you are to where you want to be. And each of that 10% is a different hole, right? So you got to make sure your skills and experience match the hole that specific franchise has to complete that bridge and get you to where you want to be, right? Because, what if you hate talking to people and you'll never show up on time to an estimate? You're going to be the worst performer in this franchise, right? So you got to make sure that your skills
That's right.
align with what the franchise is offering, and that's largely my job and the benefit that I bring to the table of working with someone like me. Um, cool. All right, so let's wrap up with just some questions I've heard, right, when I've worked with people that I've introduced to you, and questions that I have, right. So the first thing is, and I think we've hit it, but they say, hey, I've seen other flooring companies that do both, right? They sell the flooring and they do the installs, right? What is your kind of response to that, and why has Footprints Floors over since 2008 when this started, right? Just kept this specific model and haven't started selling things?
Yeah, admittedly, I talk out of both corners of my mouth. We can do everything. Our core focus is labor, and it's not because we don't want to do product. It's because 85% of the people that we walk through their front door tell us they've already identified it. So rather than saying, "Well, you're kind of going down the right path, but let me show you why mine's better," um, we don't necessarily need to, and a lot of us don't want to. It complicates the business, and it makes us have to expand on being experts in subjects that they're pretty robust. Not that we can't learn it, and several franchise owners do sell product, but yeah, ultimately our core business model is driven by what consumers are looking for, um, and we satisfy their needs. We find that to be the most effective close on a sale.
Awesome. Yep. Keeping it simple and giving people what they want, right?
Mhm.
That's how you expand.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
and to your point, we with our franchise presence, we have everything you could think of related to product, like tier one national pricing, just like any concept you can think. We have all that stuff. Um, So, should a franchise owner come in and say, "Man, I really want to sell product," sweet, we'll show you how to do it. We'll teach you. We'll provide you everything you need, including vendor relationships and drop shipment and national pricing and accounts payable with them and terms and all that. Should your heart desire, but we don't really need to. Is kind of the answer to your question.
Awesome. And I just learned something there. So I'm glad I asked that question.
Mhm.
Um, The okay, hiring and managing subcontracted crews sounds difficult. What's your response to that?
Um, there's no silver bullet that I'll provide anybody that says, aha, that's it. That's what they do that makes subcontracting simple. Um, the fact of the matter, if people wrap their heads around it, crews look for three things. They want steady work, they want to be treated like a human being, and they want to be paid when the job's done. We can effectively tee you up in front of estimates, which, because you showed up, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to land jobs even though you don't even know what you did, right? Customers say yes to you. You put a job in front of a crew, they're going to show up. You treat them like a human. You ask them how their weekend was. They like the engagement. You treat them fair. When there's a change on a project, you proactively ask the customer and say, hey, I need approval on a $200 addition because of this. And the customer says, yeah, that makes sense. And you don't ask the crew, hey, I thought you'd throw that in for free. So you treat them like a human being and you represent them. And then you pay them when the job is done. Because I'm in the property every day and I'm talking to my customer and I'm making proactive decisions, it's very easy for us on Friday to say, hey, let's walk through. This looks great. And the customer goes, yeah, it sure does. Time to pay me. And I turn around and I pay my crew. And so crews are the most intimidating aspect of this business to everybody as they go through it. About 2 months in operation, we ask our franchise owners, hey, let's talk about crews. Let's talk about the challenges. And we almost have to pull out of them to find any challenge, any heartburn, any negativity. And what we usually say to them is, it's working, right? And they go, yeah, I guess I didn't think about that. In fact, the heartburn in our business is customers. Homeowners are a pain in the butt. We can totally work around them and work with them and so forth. But crews, it's not a challenge at all. Don't take my word. You're going to hear from multiple franchise owners, and they can share with you. Yeah, I was in the same spot. I was intimidated. I was hesitant. And I always say, like, listen, we live between a picky homeowner and a notoriously pain in the butt crew. If the crew was great and the homeowner was awesome, we don't exist. Thank God they aren't, because we can manage between the two. We can be the communication conduit, um, and we can effectively carry out a lot of business, and it's not overly complex with crews.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Um, Next one, a lot of the guys that I work with, they say, hey, I want to grow a big business, right? This is something I want to do and be okay making, 100K, right? I make that in my job. I want to be able to grow this to something more than I have now. Um, so can you take us through, well, one, what's the biggest franchisee in terms of the number of territories, right? Um, and then what's their growth from being, I wear all the hats and I'm the only employee, to being a proper business owner that works on the business, right? Like the owner does with his Denver franchises.
Yeah, there's a lot to this because, as I'm sure you know, there's a variety of expectations that franchise owners come with. And those expectations are oftentimes influenced by corporate world, right? And as they become business owners, expectations can sometimes shift based on lifestyle, based on, oh my gosh, I never knew this was a possibility, so on and so forth. So, to try to answer your question as directly as possible, our top performer um, is a guy that hails from like medical equipment maintenance, right? He maintained and was a service provider on medical equipment. No sales, none of that. Just get in, do the job, go to the next one. The more you do, the more you make. And he's approached his business in the same fashion. He gets into estimates. He's agenda driven with providing the estimate, giving a yes. He's successfully grown. I think he's got a team of about, and it he brought him to convention. I think he's got two salespeople, two project managers, and then he still sells and he also operates the business as an owner, as a CEO. The reason he still sells is because I think when you talk to him, if you boil it down, he likes the returns he makes by the time he puts into sales. So could he remove himself from that? Yes. Does he need to? No. He's got two young kids and a wife at home, and I think he still finds a great work life balance. He's a couple $1 million in revenue. He grew to that over the course of the last 4.5 years, and he continues to grow every year. But I've had other guys like, we have a single operator that comes from operating. Um, he's like a partner operator in medical practices, so private medical practices, and kind of on the investment side of it. I mean, he's blowing our minds with how fast he's growing his revenue, but he's doing it all himself, and he's selling. I mean, the guy is a machine, and I ask him, what's he doing? What's the secret sauce? And he's just like, I can do anything. I'm invincible, and you want to hire me, and it's nothing crazy. So we have folks like that immediately are they got so much work booked that we're like, hey, let's dial down sales and let's get this produced. And they're saying, no, let's keep it going. I can produce these jobs. So I guess the long and short of that is the bottleneck tends to be the franchise owner, and the lead generation opportunities and turning on the dial of marketing and lead generation is up to a franchise owner's tolerance. How comfortable are you of going and giving an in-home estimate? How quickly can you task yourself to putting a final number and putting it in front of a customer with confidence? They say, yes, this looks good. And you say, great, I'll schedule it. We'll start tomorrow. That's a little unrealistic, but the mindset is, for those that can go out and handle a little stress, a little chaos, there's endless opportunity. You're going to realize that there's two main tasks inside of our business: sales and production. I got to sell a job, I got to produce a job. Most franchise owners want to have their finger on that from the very beginning. They want to set the expectation with customers. They want to carry it out with production, put their signature on it, and get a 5-star review. Once that happens, which is different for everybody, they start to grow. They start to realize, well, I can sell it, set an expectation, and my crew, my project manager that I hire, can carry it out. And we'll have a few mistakes, and we'll have some times that the customer wants to circumvent them because they're not the owner like I am. But I need to grow beyond that. So it really is one's tolerance towards those stresses. For example, I started my business. I was not involved. I live in Denver or south of Denver. My business is in central Indiana. I wasn't going to be a part of it. So I hired from day one a staff, and we've continued to grow year over year. And I have salespeople and I have project management people,
Awesome. So it is
and
something that you
they
can definitely,
effectively run the business.
yeah. So something that you can scale and grow. And just for the listener, right? Like the normal owner is an owner operator. If you want someone who's going to kind of be that situation like Brian, you need to have worked with them in the past, right? So it's not just some random guy you're hiring off Indeed. It's someone that you know that you can trust to be in it for the long haul.
That's right.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, and we do require a little bit of ownership interest from that individual. So
Oh,
my guys got some interest in the company, so they're committed to the success.
okay. Awesome. Thanks.
Mhm.
All right. Two more things just to note. Territories, right? One thing that I like about yours is it's KPI dependent. It's based on households, as well as a few other things. I think that's big. A lot of franchises are just off population, and it's like, who cares what the population is? I service businesses. I service households, right? If it's just high rises and there's X amount of people, like who cares, right? So that's something that I think people should look for is your territory size is based off of the KPI of your actual customer, right? Not just a population. Um, so I don't know if you want to talk on that. I just wanted to bring that up real quick because I think that's another really positive point about this.
Yeah, in quick, I mean, Brian Park is extremely analytical. His like hobby is spreadsheets, and so he's evaluated who our target customer is, which I think, like you highlighted, is really important. And he's built out territories to have a number of folks inside that category who consume our services. He then overlaid that against lead generation information to say, hey, what I think is this. Let me see how many leads Angie's populated in these zip codes. And his goal was to create an equal opportunity for everybody around the country. And his goal was also to make sure we're not trying to convince people to buy West Virginia. It doesn't support our business. And so it really thoughtful. And I think a lot of our development is consistent trajectory of each and every franchise owner. It's not oh, this guy was on the right street corner and so he hit a home run. It's you're going to get an opportunity as franchise prospects looking at this business to talk to owners and realize that Los Angeles, as well as New York, as well as Birmingham, Alabama, have taken off with the same opportunities and the same volumes and the same, revenues. So yeah, a lot of thought inside of our territories. We want our owners to be healthy. Like I said earlier, we want them to, excel and succeed and move forward in life.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. And last one. So like we just talked about, territories are designed to be equal, but some places are probably already sold. Some places aren't viable. Some places, even with a normal territory, probably really nice. What are markets that you're looking for right now or that are open, and that you think owners would do well in Footprints floors in?
Yeah, so I talked about you asked number of franchisees. We have a total of 160 territories sold and that's out of a total of 380. So we're about halfway there as it relates to like total volume of how many we can support, and they're all over the country. Some areas where we have multiple territories would be like the Boston, Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, all the way through Pennsylvania down into Maryland, and then as we go, kind of west of there, if you will, because there's only one direction to go. Chicago, I got a lot of openings. Dallas, Houston, as I keep going, California. I know you brought it up earlier. There's some licensing stuff. We have solutions to all the states that do require licenses. There's 6 states, and we've already overcome those hurdles. So we're ready to rock and roll with any state. We have availability all over the country.
Beautiful. All right. So if you're listening to this, you think, hey, this might be a good fit for me, reach out to me. I'll get with Brian. We'll also do the evaluation to see, hey, maybe there's a couple others that you should be looking into as well. But yeah, those are great markets. So Brian, I really appreciate you being here on the podcast. I learned a lot. I think this was enlightening for the listeners as well. Just really appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh. And anybody that wants to look at us, we always appreciate the opportunity and get to learn more about a legitimate franchise, whether it's right for you or not. We've kind of covered every basis when it comes to supporting franchise owners.
Awesome. Cool. And that's a wrap. Big thanks to Brian for breaking down what Footprints Floors is really like behind the scenes. Remember, if you're serious about exploring franchise ownership and want help figuring out what's actually a good fit for you, I'd love to help. You can book a free call at tracerfranchising.com. Just scroll down that homepage. Shoot me an email, josh@tracerfranchising.com. I work with a small group of motivated buyers who want to do real due diligence, make a smart investment, and build something meaningful. Thanks for listening. If this episode helped you, share it with someone who's thinking about taking the next step. Rate it, give us 5 stars, or even drop a comment. Catch you next time.